There was a time in your life when everything felt quiet, but not the kind of quiet that brings peace. It was the kind of silence that made you question everything. You would wake up, go through your day, speak to people, smile when needed, but deep inside there was a feeling you couldn't explain, a feeling that something was missing, a feeling that something was supposed to happen but hadn't yet, and in that silence questions began to grow. Why is my life not changing? Why does everything feel stuck? Why do I feel like I'm waiting, but I don't even know what I'm waiting for? You looked around. People were moving forward. People were achieving things, building lives, celebrating moments, and there you were, feeling like time had slowed down just for you. And slowly, without even realizing it, doubt entered your heart. Maybe I'm not meant for something bigger. Maybe this is all there is. Maybe nothing will ever change, but listen carefully, because this is where everything shifts. God says, what you are feeling is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of your transformation. The work that happens in silence. There are two kinds of change in life. The change you can see and the change you cannot. Most people only believe in what they can see. They trust visible progress. They celebrate visible success. They rely on visible signs. But God does his most powerful work in the unseen. Before a seed becomes a tree, it must first disappear into the soil. Before the sun rises, the sky remains dark. Before a new life begins, there is a period of hidden growth. And just like that, before your life begins to change on the outside, it must first change on the inside. God says, I started working in your life long before you noticed anything different. The days you thought were wasted, think about the days that felt empty. The days when nothing exciting happened. The days when you felt unmotivated, disconnected, unsure. You thought those days were meaningless. You thought you were wasting time, but those days were not empty. They were necessary. Because in those quiet, slow, unnoticed days, something was being built within you. Patience, strength, awareness, understanding. God says, even when you felt like you were doing nothing, I was shaping everything. When doors closed without explanation, there were moments when things didn't go your way. Opportunities you hoped for didn't happen. Plans you made fell apart. People you trusted left. And each time you asked the same question, why? Why did this happen? Why now? Why me? You searched for answers, but none came. And that made it even harder. But what you couldn't see was this. Every closed door was not a punishment. It was direction. God says, I closed doors you were ready to walk through because they were not meant for you. Not everything you want is good for you. Not every opportunity is aligned with your purpose. Not every person is meant to stay in your life. And sometimes, the greatest blessings come disguised as painful endings. The weight you carried alone, there were struggles you never spoke about. Thoughts you kept to yourself, pain you chose to hide. You learned how to act strong. You learned how to smile even when you didn't feel like it. You learned how to say, I'm fine, when you weren't. And over time, that weight became heavier. Because you were carrying it alone, or at least that's what you thought. God says, you were never carrying it alone. I was with you in every moment. Even in your silence, even in your confusion, even in your weakest moments. The breaking point. There comes a moment in every person's life when everything feels like too much. Too many thoughts, too many emotions, too many unanswered questions. And in that moment, you feel like giving up. Not necessarily on life, but on hope, on the belief that things will get better, on the idea that something good is coming. And maybe you reached that moment. Maybe you sat alone and thought, I don't think I can keep doing this. But that moment, that exact moment, was not your end. It was your turning point. God says, when you reached your lowest point, you were actually closest to your breakthrough. The shift that begins within change doesn't always start with a big event. It doesn't always come with a clear sign. Sometimes it starts quietly. A small realization, a different way of thinking, a moment of clarity. You begin to see things differently. You begin to understand what once confused you. You begin to let go of what once controlled you. And without realizing it, you are changing. God says, Before I change your circumstances, I change your perspective. Because how you see the world determines how you live in it. Letting go of what no longer belongs. Part of growth is letting go. Letting go of old habits. Letting go of negative thoughts. Letting go of people who drain your energy. Letting go of things that hold you back. And that is not easy, because even the things that hurt us can feel familiar. But growth requires change, and change requires release. God says, you cannot receive what is meant for you if you are still holding onto what is not. You were being prepared all along. Everything you went through was preparing you. The pain was building strength. The confusion was building awareness. The waiting was building patience. And all of it together was shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and ready for what's coming next. God says, I was not delaying your life. I was preparing you for it. What you feel now, and now, something feels different. You may not be where you want to be yet, but you're not where you used to be. You're thinking differently, feeling differently, seeing things differently. And even though everything is not perfect, there is a small sense of peace. A quiet understanding that something is changing, and you're right, because it is. God says, the change you are waiting for has already begun. You are not behind. One of the biggest lies you believed was that you are behind in life, that others are ahead of you, that you are late, that you missed your chance. But that is not true. Everyone's journey is different. Everyone's timing is different, and your story is unfolding exactly the way it needs to. God says, you are not behind. You are on the path I created just for you. Trusting the process. Trust is not easy, especially when you don't understand what's happening. But trust is necessary, because not everything will make sense immediately. Some things will only make sense later, and when they do, you will see the bigger picture. God says, trust me now and you will understand later. What is coming next? There is more ahead of you, more growth, more opportunities, more peace, more clarity, things you cannot yet see, things you cannot yet imagine, but they are coming. And when they do, everything will start to make sense. God says, what I am bringing into your life will be worth the wait. Final words of this part. So if you are in a place of uncertainty right now, if you are still waiting, still hoping, still questioning, remember this. You are not stuck. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are in the middle of a transformation that began long before you saw it. God says,